welcome to Mint. I am Leslie DeMonte. We are joined by Tamal Bandyopadhyay. Welcome to the show, Tamal. Today's monetary policy, RBI cut CRR and left the other policy rates unchanged. Why did it do it?
Well, the best person to answer this is Subbarao himself, Governor. I would tend to believe that there was persuasion from Finance Ministry because, Governor has all along been saying that in the absence of fiscal corrections, we can't do anything much. Lifting a sagging economy is not the job of RBI alone. The government has to pitch in. The government has pitched in. There is a series of reform measures last week. So that was a sort of pressure, a moral suasion on the Reserve Bank of India to do something. Now, one way of approaching this was doing nothing, because Subbarao could have said, look, I have done my bit. I had actually cut the rate in the April policy. Now you are reciprocating it. Otherwise, seeing it, look, we are comrade in arms. We need to tackle the situation together. Need concerted efforts. So he has to do something, but he found it extremely difficult to cut the rate, which government would have been very happy about, because inflation continues to remain high. In the fiscal 2012, the average inflation is about 7.5. So it's difficult to cut rate. But at the same time, he wanted to send a signal. This signal has been done by cutting CRR.
But the paradox of the situation is that growth has not been, the inflation has not been contained either, and bankers are pointing this specific aspect of this entire paradox. So what do you feel is going to be the impact of this?
Well, impact, I would imagine that banks will cut their rates. There are two reasons. One is, of course, that in April, when Reserve Bank of India had cut its policy rate by 50 basis points, there is not a single instance of bank cutting their rates for every borrower. They have not touched the so-called base rate or the minimum lending rate. Instead, they have been fine-tuning in certain segments. So now this 50 basis point cut, which was front-loaded, and along with that the CRR cut, they will give them some room to look at their asset liability portfolios and do something. And secondly, you have to see that there is a new finance minister at the center. There is a new economic advisor. So there will be pressure, there will be moral suasion on them to cut rates. Some of the banks had already started, led by State Bank of India, their deposit rates. So it's time. I will not be surprised if by this week, if we find the banks cutting their even base rate.
So I know it's difficult to do crystal gazing as such, but going forward, what's the way? There's growth on the one hand that's being affected. Inflation is a concern. So how do you see the way forward?
Yeah, I would not call this cut in CRR is the end of a tight money policy and the beginning of a soft policy. I would look at it as a signal. There's a very nuanced part in the policy which says that even RBI needs to play its role in propping up the economy. Till now, Reserve Bank of India is saying that the government needs to play its role. Now it's saying that he's taking the onus. So he will be agile to do something as and when the situation arises. But do we see tomorrow a rate cut or further CRR cut? Certainly not. But I would say now it's an open situation. Inflation continues to remain high and a concern, but RBI is equally concerned about growth. So it's a very fine balancing act it needs to do. But there could be rate cut. There is definitely there will be rate cut during this fiscal. Will it happen in October in the next policy? It's anybody's guess.
So the situation is fluid. Rate cuts have to happen. When is anybody's guess? There's always that fine tension, the delicate balance between inflation and growth. So thank you, Tamal, for joining us on this edition and giving us your valuable insights. On that note, we end today's episode. For more updates, please log on to livemint.com. Thank you.